Welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Rashad Miller. That's Ian Duke. We're here at day 2 of Pro Tour Magic Origins here in Vancouver, British Columbia. You just watched Rich Hohen's draft live. We have another one for you. If we can bring up the table graphic, you can see that Rich Hohen's right there, and 3 seats to his right, we have Kentaro Yamamoto. They both ended yesterday at 8-0, so today we're going to see what the other undefeated player in this tournament can do with this draft deck. So if we can go ahead and start that up, get a nice view of the table, except for Yamamoto, and here we go. There we can see his cards. And we're looking at it, and it looks like, whoa, he opened a Pia and Kieran Nallar.
Yeah, one of the better rares in the set. I think better than pretty much all the commons and uncommons, so I think that's going to be a pick here.
That's just a slam dunk, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the pro players have been gravitating towards red as one of the stronger colors, so I think he's happy to just jump right in.
Yeah, some other notables, looks like he's looking at that Rock Smaller and just Jesse and Thief, but, you know,
yeah,
you can't really go wrong with the other Siege Commander, right?
And taking a look at what might wheel in that pack, there was an Active Trees in there, so that's always something to keep in mind when you're playing red, either as a sideboard card or if he moves into red-black, it could be a great option on the wheel.
Exactly. All right, so let's see what we can come up with our second pick. And there's a Fiery Impulse. That's another good red card for him. Not a lot of other exciting things in this pack.
Yeah, Fiery Impulse, the best red common, one of the best commons in the set. Some say the best common, and it matches the color of his first
Stalwart even,
pick,
that goes to the top. That's a solid white card.
Yep. I think he's taking note mostly of what he's passing here and what he's likely to put the people into his left into. And I think Stalwart even looks like maybe the second best card in the pack. A little hard to tell as he's flipping through quickly.
But yeah, there's also an Shroud and Mist, and that's probably the notables. But he does go with the Fiery Impulse, which is great in the format where you need to do things early, either blocking a Renown creature or just getting rid of it all away.
Yeah, it's one of the tempo advantage cards that lets you catch up against Renown, which is super important. Notably passing 2 strong white cards there, so keep that in mind.
All right, so third pick, Dragon Fodder, if he wants to stay in colors. There look like there are a couple good green cards. Pulls the Dragon Fodder to the front.
Yep. He's making quick decisions here. He likes the red cards that he's seeing so far. That's great. There's a Charging Griffin, Llanowar Empath. Yeah,
Llanowar Empath and Yava's Force Mage. Green looks to be slightly open, and maybe he's even considering picking up a second color here.
I think he's just happy to stay red and see what shakes out. I mean, by the time he gets to his 4th or 5th pick, it'll be abundantly clear what colors are open. So all else being equal, he's just going to stay red, I think, as long as possible.
He wants to make sure he gets to play his first pick in this draft.
Yeah.
It's a very solid card. So late Rock Smaller still in the pack for pick 4.
Yep, there's an Active Treason, not what he wants to pick here. Honored Hierarch is decent.
Now, do you like Honored Hierarch over Rock Smaller?
That's a tough choice. I mean, the Hierarch is great on the play, but loses a lot of value later in the game. I think I would probably take the Hierarch here, just because a 5-drop is more replaceable, and the upside in the Hierarch is a little bit higher.
Definitely goes with takes the Hierarch. Looks like he's looking to be an aggressive red deck of sorts.
Yeah, interestingly, red-green is one of the color combinations I've heard players shy away from a little bit, but we'll see if he decides to embrace that or keep his options open.
So it looks like the solid picks here are we have an Anchor to the Ether and an Apron's Tactician. Looks like we also have an Aspiring Aeronaut.
Yeah, I think Anchor to the Aether and Aspiring Aeronaut both good. I think Anchor to the Aether probably a little bit stronger here, although Aspiring Aeronaut I've felt has been underrated recently, and it's a card I quite like as well. But so he does go with the
Aether. Now there was a late Emperor's Tactician. Do you think that means that white could also be open?
That's a card I wouldn't necessarily take as a signal that white is open, and he's passed a few strong white cards so far, so I wouldn't be ready to jump in if I were in his shoes.
Well,
but here's a second one. So
he's looking at a second one, and in the colors that he's taken so far, it doesn't look like anything else is really catching his eye.
Yeah, Chief of the Foundry can be good if you move into the Thopters, but it looks like he goes with the Tactician here, possibly picking up on what you were pointing out, Rashad, that white may be open despite him having passed some strong white cards.
So he's still looking for a second color, it looks like. He hasn't really decided on it, but it looks like white might be, white and green. There's a couple of white and green cards here. We have the Knight of We have Knight of the
Pilgrim's Road?
Pilgrim's Road, yes.
Yeah, that
Knight of
card I
Pilgrim's Road.
found is a bit weaker than it looks at first, so it's not something I'm super excited to jump into. I actually don't mind Rune Servitor that much. It trades with early renowned creatures, and the symmetric effect of both players drawing a card, it's not downside. At
Exactly.
least.
And it also keeps him open and make sure that he doesn't actually commit to a second color just yet.
Yeah.
So second Knights there, and also a Skyraker Giant.
Yeah, that's a great pickup for him here. The one color he's sure he is red so far, so I expect him to go with the Skyraker Giant. But wow, interestingly, he goes with the Knight of the Pilgrim's Road. Okay.
Maybe deciding to move into white a little bit harder.
Yeah, it seems like he's seeing the signals here and wants to stake his claim on white.
Right, so another white card, not exactly the strongest, Kithian's Tactics.
Yeah, not much for him in this pack. The tactics he might end up playing, sometimes you get a nice white-red aggressive deck with lots of small creatures.
Yeah, and you're able to go wide enough that you can get a lot of advantage out
Absolutely.
of
If there's a deck that card is for, it's certainly white-red.
that. The very controversial Akoran Jailer.
Yeah. And again, a
He's doing
Crone
pretty-
Jailer, despite your opinion on it, or anyone's opinion on it,
Yes,
Marshall's
yes,
opinion
yes.
on it,
I
if there's a deck
personally-
for the Crone Jailer, I do like it in white-red, actually.
Yeah, being able to do something on turn one,
Right.
even, and being able to get some value out of it later is always great. So he's looking at a murder investigation. Probably not going to make the cut,
Yeah,
but it's a
probably
white
not.
card.
Yep.
And it looks like the packs are now just full of scrap. There's a heavy infantry.
So the interesting pick to me there was the Knight of the Pilgrim's Road over the Skyraker Giant. Just picking up a healing hands
Yep,
here, not
healing.
much for him. And I think after further reflection, that was probably due to curve consideration, since he has an Amperin Tactician already and a Pia and Kiran Nalar. He just doesn't want to overload on 4-drops as much. And seeing that white's open, I think staking his claim to it is
and-
pretty valuable there.
Yep, and during the review, we can see that he takes just the red and white cards, the premium cards, so he picks
Yeah.
a couple artifacts. So it looks like he's somewhat decided on red and white, though he doesn't have that many red cards. If
Yeah,
you-
not a ton of depth to his draft so far. You can see he's grabbed the cards that he's thinking about playing so far, and there aren't too many of them. Looks like about 8 or 9 cards. So I imagine he's feeling decent right now, but still a little bit apprehensive and looking for certainly some more depth of playables coming to the next couple packs.
So what's his dream open right now?
Tough
Something that
question. I mean, maybe
solidifies one of his colors.
Yeah, I mean, something like an Archangel of Ties would give him strong direction, or Chandra's Ignition, like one of the really powerful white or red cards to kind of lock him into his colors. If he sees a really powerful card in another color, he may have to decide if he's going to, say, abandon red or abandon white. But I would say he's probably trying to lock into red and white here, and Fiery Impulse is a
Yeah,
good
he's looking
pickup
at the
for him.
Fiery Impulse, but there's also a Topin Freeblade, which there's been high praise sung on that card.
Yeah,
this
definitely one of the
weekend.
best creatures in the format, one of the best white commons. I happen to like Fiery Impulse a little bit better, so if he picks the Fiery Impulse here, I think it'll show confidence that he likes his color combination and he's going to stick with red and white.
And it looks like it's a tough decision.
Enthralling Victor also an option, but we mentioned his 4-drop problem
Yeah.
a little bit earlier, so I think
Goes
he's
with
going to
the
go for the
impulse.
cheap spell.
There was also a Majoring Bully in there, so he's probably banking to get a red card back from that pack as
Yeah,
well.
Majoring Bully is a good candidate for a card that might wheel there, and that's important to keep in mind when you're filling out your curve because the 2-drop slot is so important in these aggressive decks.
Right, so second pick of this pack, he has a Tactician to the front. Oh, a War Oracle. It's a solid card. And there's a Battlefield Forge.
Yeah, he's probably not going to pick the Battlefield Forge here, but again, that's a card that might wheel and be really valuable to him. War Oracle and Amperin Tactician. I happen to like the War Oracle a little bit better here.
Very solid card.
But
I mean, basically,
Depending on the way your deck shakes out, I think
Yes.
either of those 2 4-drops could be better than the other. I would probably go with the War Oracle here, especially that he has one Amperin Tactician already.
now the Battlefield Forge, would that give him flexibility in, say, playing more of a heavy of red or white and then splashing the other?
It's possible. What I would be thinking about in his shoes are all the double costs that I have so far, especially at 4 mana.
Yeah.
And it may not seem hard to get double costs at 4 mana, but it is harder than it looks. So that's a card he'd be really happy to see wheel here. Just
All right,
to
so now
smooth
we have
it.
a Lightning Javelin and a Cleric of the Forward Order.
Yeah, I think the Lightning Javelin's the stronger card overall, but again, he's got a lot of 4-drops so far, and 2-drops are really important. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go with the Cleric of the Forward Order here.
Yeah, just for curve consideration, he already has a couple of Fiery Impulses that do a
Right.
very good job at getting you some tempo back, whereas Lightning Javelin isn't really a tempo
It's
player.
not a tempo card, no. It's more of like, I'm in a pinch for removal, this will do the job kind of a thing, but you're often losing tempo advantage by using that to kill a smaller creature or
And he
creature
did
that
go with
costs
the
less.
cleric.
Yep.
And now let's see what we got. And there we go. We have a Jericho's Gearcraft.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite red commons. I think I probably have it second of all the red commons. And I think he's super happy to pick it up here. Fiery Conclusion's also good, although probably a little bit better in like a black-red deck or a more token-oriented deck.
Yeah, or a deck that's really light on removal, which he had some pretty good options in this deck.
Yeah, the Fiery Impulses certainly give him more flexibility to pick up strong creatures rather than prioritizing some of the clunkier removal.
So it looks like he's solidifying his red picks in this pack.
Yeah.
Not a lot of white selections just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly due to how well he cut red in the first pack.
Yes.
He hardly let any red, except for that late Skyraker Giant.
So you have a Goblin Glory Chaser and a Corn Sergeant.
Yeah,
How aggressive does he want to be?
That's tough. The Glory Chaser, I've heard people say it's great. I've heard people say it's totally unplayable. It's, again, a card that is great on turn one, but loses a ton of value later in the game.
Yeah, I think all the guys playing it on turn one are saying it's great. All the
it could even be a card you
gentlemen.
sideboard in and out depending on whether you're the play or draw. I like to play it when I have a lot of combat tricks or removal spells, and maybe not play it in a deck that isn't as likely to take advantage of the tempo.
All right, so not a lot in red or white here. There's even Battle Priest. I think I saw there's a Cobble Brute, and it looks like he's looking at the Enlightened Ascetic.
Yeah, I like picking up the Ascetic here. There aren't a ton of enchantments in this format that are must answers, but I wouldn't be happy in his shoes to play either the Cobble Brute or the Aven Battle Priest. And this is a card I'm happy to have in my sideboard just in case.
Yeah, it's a great option if you're an aggressive deck, and there's an enchantment that you actually need to destroy without, going too far out of your strategy.
That's right.
So Charging Griffin, that's a nice pickup this late.
Yeah, Charging Griffin's very solid in an aggressive deck. Guardian Automaton is also a card I've heard a lot of praise for this weekend from the pros. Looks like he does go with the Griffin here.
Now is Yamamoto looking for any artifact synergies to go along with his P and Karen Nilar?
Yeah, he has the Gear per Gearcrafter already. He did pass a Chief of the Foundry in pack one, so there may be someone else that's going a little bit heavier into the Thopter theme. I don't think he really has quite enough at this point in the draft to move in on artifacts. He'd have to see sort of a conflux of several artifact-related cards in a row to really pursue that.
Picks up a late Alchemist Vial, but wasn't really much else in the pack, and if he's in a pinch for playables, he can play that. And it draws a card. It actually has some value in the game. Still not a lot here.
Yeah, the Rumbler might be fine for top end if he doesn't pick up anything else. Guardians of Meletus is also a pretty good sideboard card here. He's a pretty aggressive deck, so it doesn't really fit his main strategy, but if he's up against another aggressive deck or a deck with a lot of renowned creatures, he may want to bring that in.
Hey, and the Battlefield Forge came
Yeah,
back.
that's pretty exciting.
Gets to play that. Helps out
he goes straight for it. I was going to discuss some of the other options there, but it looks like he just loves the Battlefield Forge, and I agree. Red and white in particular in this format have a lot of double cost, especially at the 4-drop mark, as we mentioned earlier.
Right. Cobble Brute is probably going to be the pick here. It's not much else. Nothing else in its color. A couple of nigh unplayables in that pack. Looks like Artificial's Epiphany is not getting any love in this tournament. Infectious Bloodlust looks like it's going to be the pick.
Yeah, Infectious Bloodlust can be decent if you pick up a number of them. I think that's his first one, so probably not something that's going to make his deck this time.
Hate draft the Catacomb Slug. I don't think he could ever beat that card.
Yeah, some of these high toughness creatures are actually really important and valuable in this format because of Renown and the way the games play out.
Yeah, he got a last pick Rabid Bloodsucker, in case you were wondering.
Sure.
All right, so now we're looking at his deck, and it's looking a little better. It looks like he's got a plan. He's got a better curve. What else do you see? What highlights do you see here, and what do you think he's looking for?
So he's got a few 1-drops here, which can range from really strong if he gets the rest of what he needs to curve out aggressively, or could kind of be mediocre if he doesn't get the right support for him. I think he's going to want to probably look for a few combat tricks late in the next pack. Things like Titan Strength and Mighty Leap are going to give more value to his early drops. Other than that, he's really just filling out his curve and looking for bombs. I think what he wants is depth of playables right now. He's got a solid deck so far. I'd say he's on track for like a B+ sort of a deck if things hold steady. So he's going to look probably for his third pack to be a little bit stronger than his first and second.
What cards does Yamamoto need to make this into an A?
More like cards like Topin Freeblade, just more really solid curve-filling creatures, Gear Peer Gear Crafter, Boggart Brutes, things along those lines, or just spiking a bomb.
Or how about another PN?
Yeah, that'll do the
Nalar?
trick. That's a pretty happy open there.
Are we already in A- range?
Yes, I think so. I think that notched him up a third of a letter grade, so to speak.
So there's also some other, white and red cards that he's just kind of counting to see
Yeah, I mean,
which one's
maybe
going
he
to come
gets
back.
the Cleric of the Forward Order back.
He'd be really happy to see that one come
You
back.
would be very happy to see that come
Maybe
back.
even the Bonded Construct?
Perhaps, yeah. And, the door is still open for some kind of artifact synergies, especially since he has a second Pia in Kieran Nalar. Grasp of the Hieromancer is a card I don't love to start main deck, but it can be good in certain matchups, like a sideboard card.
Especially if you have enchantment synergies, which, are in a different color combination. But in an aggressive deck, it's still +1/+1 and some evasive properties.
Yeah.
Okay, right here we had a little bit of a pack issue. If you watched the live draft with Rich Hohen, they had to change one of his packs. So it's going to be a little bit of a delay here. So we can use this time to reflect a little bit on how good Yamamoto feels about having 2 rares in his deck.
Pretty darn good. Yeah, like we said earlier, Pia and Kieran Nalar, one of the strongest rares in the format, I would say. Fits his deck really well. It's a card that, even if it's answered immediately, you still get a lot of value out of it. So it's not like an all-in kind of a rare where it's, answer this or lose kind of a thing. It's more just, I'm getting guaranteed value. This is going to put me ahead. And especially having 2 copies of it in his deck, I mean, the consistency with which he's going to draw it, or he draws it, it gets killed, he plays another one, which also works with the Thopters from the first one.
Exactly.
Some really powerful sequences there.
All right, here we go. Pack 2, we have a Goblin Glory Chaser and there's a Goblin Pile Driver. Probably not enough goblins in his deck just yet for that to be
the Pile Driver's
useful.
tough to manage. I think we're going to see him go with the second Glory Chaser here. Given that he picked the first one, it's kind of a card that gets better, not better specifically in multiples, but better
the more
in,
consistently you can get it turned
yeah,
on.
better in redundancy of that category of card, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. And this then will let him prioritize things like combat tricks more to get his Glory Chasers in. So I like that pick there.
Yeah, he's got a nice aggressive curve. He's able to go turn 1 Glory Shaker or a Koran Jailer, and turn 2 Fiery Impulse, a creature out of the way. Not a lot going on here.
Yeah, he has a Kythian's Tactics already. There's a Titan Strength here. I think I would probably be looking at the Titan Strength.
Just to get your trick.
Yeah, just to get like a single target trick, I guess, because the Tactics is only good when you have critical mass on the board and he already has 1 copy. Evolving Wilds is reasonable, although with the 1-drops in his deck, I would shy away from it in his particular deck. It looks like he does go for the Tactics. So
I mean, he does have the ability to go a little bit wide with the double P and Kieran.
Yep.
And he does have a Gearper's Gear Crafter. And he has a bunch of 1-drops. Well, not a bunch, but he has more than a lot of decks usually play in this format.
Right.
So maybe that's his plan. There's a Nightly Valor.
Nightly Valor's nice.
Another Akoran Sergeant. I don't think he took the first one, but it's the second one he actually saw. There's a Meteorite that he has to the front. Doesn't seem to fit his deck.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him take the Meteorite. I like the Nightly Valor here. He's not super glutted on the high drop, so I think he can afford to take it here. It's the most powerful card. You can make a case for some of the cheaper creatures to fill out his curve, and it looks like he does go with that. So that's good discipline there, I think.
Yeah, and Nightly Valor it obviously is better if you have a creature in play, but if your creatures are already pretty small, it doesn't really give you any evasion. It just makes a 1/1 into a 3/3. So there's an Icarus Tactician, and if he's looking at Yamamoto's looking at the go wide strategy, that's another way to benefit from having a lot of creatures.
Yeah, the Tactician and the Cleric are the options here. Looks like he's eyeing up the Tactician. Oh, Lightning Javelin pulls to the front also. Okay, any of those 3 you can make a case for. It's a little hard to tell without having the deck laid out in front of us.
Right.
Looks like he does go with the Lightning Javelin there.
Also gives him a little bit of reach because, none of his removal and none of his red removal can actually target a player just yet.
Oh, great.
Tactician.
That worked out really well for him, given that he took the Lightning Javelin last pack over the Tactician, and now he gets a Tactician here over virtually nothing.
Yeah, there's basically nothing else for him, so he's going to go with the Tactician.
Yeah.
Now, do you think his deck right now can go wide enough to benefit from all of these global creature enhancements?
Yes, it's on the borderline. I would love to see 1 more Gear per Gear Crafter, although that ship has probably sailed for him at this point.
It's definitely not in this port.
Yeah, I can't think of any other cards he'd get late, maybe a Dragon Fodder.
Right.
Although we're closing in on his 8th pick here, at which point he'll have seen all the packs.
Right, and I don't think we actually saw a Dragon Fodder.
Correct.
I think that was the Grasper that he passed the first time.
Oh, okay, so we might be back around to pack 9
so
already.
we've already seen everything that we're going to see.
Yeah.
So I don't think he could go wider unless he picks up a couple of 1-drops and maybe some 2-drops. There's a Mighty Leap.
Yeah, I like the Mighty Leap here. That's good. We talked earlier about Titan Strength and Mighty Leap being kind of the single target pump spells that he has access to. Titan Strength in particular doesn't work that well with the 1/1 since it only grants a 1 toughness bonus, which will still often lead to your creature trading. So Mighty Leap is actually better than Titan Strength for getting through things like Goblin Glory Chasers.
Oh yeah, it's great for getting through stuff like that. Now, do you think Yamamoto is going to change his building strategy and maybe go less wide and more single point tricks as he picks up a Grasp?
No, I think he's pretty squarely in the middle, being able to use both pretty effectively. He has a pretty high creature density. I think we'll see him play probably one of the Kithian's tactics, maybe 2 main deck, probably playing the Mighty Leap. So he's kind of aggressive on a couple angles where he's trying to just rush with creatures, and then in the later game he has the backup plan of playing a go wide pump spell and getting through.
Okay, while Yamamoto's finishing up these picks, you had him at A- when he picked up the second Pia Nilar.
Yeah.
Where is he at now?
I think the 3rd pack, aside from the Pia and Kieran that he picked up, it was mostly just solid, but not really like a grand slam for him. So I'd put him probably in like the B+ range at this point.
Okay.
His deck's, it's solid. It's kind of what you're looking for with white-red. He's got a couple bombs, but it's not like the super curve out, triple Topin Freeblade type of, all-star white-red deck that you might be hoping for going to the day 2 draft.
All right, so that's Kentaro Yamamoto's draft. He's 8-0. See how well he can deal with that draft deck. I'm Rashad Miller and Ian Duke from the Tournament Center.
All right, thanks very much to Rashad Miller and the man who's just joining in beside me, Ian Duke. Interesting stuff there, Ian. Mum and Dad and Mum and Dad. Awesome. That's great stuff. So 2 8-0 players. You've seen the drafts of Rich Hone and Kentaro Yamamoto. Now, we're not giving away anything here. The way that Swiss pairings works means that if you are paired against someone with the same record as yourself. There are only 2 8-0 players. We know that Rich Hone and Kentaro Yamamoto are on a collision course. We've also been joined at the desk by Pro Tour historian Brian David Marshall. At BDM, this is our first chance to chat today, so before we get into all the races, I do just want to touch on yesterday. Huge day for you as the historian, and for the 3 members of the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame who were announced yesterday.
Yeah, it's always great to watch players who've been playing for more than 10 years on the Pro Tour get chosen by the people who make the Pro Tour, officiate the Pro Tour, and especially play on the Pro Tour, vote people into the Hall of Fame. And we saw Eric Froelich, the current Player of the Year frontrunner, nicely tied in to what we're going to be talking about shortly. Shota Yasaoka, the former Player of the Year and Pro Tour champion, and Willie Adel, the 4-time Pro Tour top 8 competitor, and beloved community figure, which is really nice. And what I thought was really special, by the way, is this was the first year the voting was opened up to the community. There was a collective ballot by the Magic community that was submitted. The contents of that ballot was a 3-person ballot. It was Eric Froelich, Shota Yasaoka, and Willie Adel.
Oh, wow.
So kudos to the Magic community. You guys voted better than many other people voted.
Yeah.
You did a great job. That was perfect.
Yeah, that's very reassuring as well. That means that the rest of the voters are reflecting also the community. That,
Yes.
that we all kind of arrived at, that there's not a lot of random people with votes on this list, and we did end up with a great class again, and yeah, well done to the community for investing in that as well. It was great to have you on board as part of the process, and so many great conversations around the internet.
I know it was especially very moving for Willie to hear, he's been doing stuff for years, and we talked about it, and he's like, he doesn't do it for the recognition, right? It's not like something he's doing cynically, not something he's doing to get into the Hall of Fame, and he was kind of like, oh, it was just kind of nice to hear from people that, oh, when Paulo says, when you helped me get to the Pro Tour and helped me become a Pro Tour Hall of Famer, I appreciated that, and I couldn't have done that without you, and that's important to me. And hearing that time and time again from people in his community was really moving for him.
Well, if you want to get in the Hall of Fame, you need to be playing on the Pro Tour for 10 years or more, and that probably means you've done rather well at a Pro Tour. These people are doing well at this Pro Tour. Why don't we take a look at our overnight leaderboard right now? And as we've mentioned, there are 2 players undefeated on 8-0, Kentaro Yamamoto of Japan and Rich Hone of Canada. Rich Hone is literally just focusing on this event. He's not, the only way for him to be platinum is to win the whole thing. He's not in contention for a World Magic Cup slot or a World Championship slot. Magic is not an important part of his life right now. It's just, hey, I got to qualify. I'm in my home country. Fantastic. And isn't he ever making the most of it? Ian, what stands out to you amongst the slew of 7-1s from 3rd down to 14th?
Let's see, definitely catching my eye. Brian Gottlieb, I believe he tested with some of the New York area crew.
Right.
He's doing really well today. Joel Larson, one of my favorite European pros that I love to watch. Also great to see him doing well. Scott Lipp, longtime player, has been playing since 1997, I believe.
Yep, 7 PTs before now.
And he's on a heater in the Grand Prix circuit, as I understand it, so it's great to see him doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. BDM, lots of North Americans, as we would expect. 9 and 10 on the list there. Pat Cox and Sam Black.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Black is really where my eye is going immediately on this list. Sam Black is currently 3 points behind Eric Froelich in the Player of the Year race. And this is a huge leg up for Sam Black. He's 3 full matches ahead of Eric Froelich in the standings today.
Yeah, we will get into the Player of the Year in a moment. But on the right-hand side of that screen, as we look at some of the 6 and 2s, just above them with a draw there, you've got Makihito Mahara at 6-1-1, and just the way that the breakers worked out, Shahar Shenhar, double world champion, at 6-2. Remember, draft pods of 8 people were decided today, and that means that the second pod was just ferocious. You had Wilson Mock, Stephen Neal, Pat Cox, Sam Black, Makihito Mahara, Shahar Shenhar, Michael Dirtso, and Max McVitie were the second pod. So you've done all that hard work of getting to 7-1, and suddenly you get, oh, let's just add Makihito Mahara, Hall of Famer, and a double world champion to that pod.
And it's the waters look pretty sweet at 7-1, but there are some very dangerous rocks under there. Someone is going to be 7-4 at that table, right? You're looking around the table and you're like, we're all 7-1. Oh, one of us is going to be 7-4.
Yeah, that's the Paul Rietzl line
Right.
from the second morning of the Pro
heard that
Tour.
one.
Hey, great job yesterday, guys. Someone's 7-4. Yeah. So that's what's going on with the leaderboard. But there are so many races to get into. The most prestigious, clearly the sort of gold standard in all this, the Player of the Year race. Now there are 51 players who came in who could theoretically do it. 18 of those wouldn't necessarily have to make the top 8 to be Player of the Year. Of those 18, 16 are still playing, and 15 can still make the top 8. Here is your 2015 Player of the Year race leaderboard coming into the weekend. And BDM, let's just go with the headline. The only person of the 16 still playing who cannot now make top 8 is
Eric Froelich. He is 4-4. He, in fact, had to win his last round to stay in the tournament, to keep playing. That's the cut from day 1 to day 2. You got to go 500, and it's not a great spot to be in. You're in day 2. It's better than staying home and drafting today. But at 4-4, he's got a lot of work to do just to rack up some more points. He needs to go 7-1, maybe even 8-0 to really keep himself relevant in this Player of the Year race.
Yeah, for everyone in all the races, what really count is the 10th win, the 11th win, and the 12th win.
Let's talk about that for a second, because people see that column on the left that says points.
Right.
Those are pro points.
Yes, and those points are what have been accumulated over all the Grand Prix, all the previous Pro Tours this season. And when we're talking about the match points here, every match win gets you 3 points here, but in terms of the pro points being awarded at the end of the day, The 10th win gets you 3 extra pro points. The 11th win, 4 extra pro points. And the 12th win, that's 5 extra pro points. And that's really back-breaking in terms of how many matches people have to win to catch you. So we've established that Eric Froelich is in trouble at 4-4. Who is poised to take advantage, BDM?
Well, I mean, Sam Black is in a great spot at 7-1. And Li Shitian is right behind him at 6-2. Both players, if they can rattle off a streak of wins today and put themselves into that, really kind of elite territory of 12, 13 wins, then, things start to get really scary for Eric Froelich.
Next up, Yuya Watanabe. Now, he is gone. He is out of the race. He will not be your player of the year.
Let me ask you a question. Did anybody watch Yuya Watanabe play Constructed yesterday? He was playing in hard mode. Literally hard mode. He was playing a hardened Scales deck.
Wow.
In Standard. I was going through the deck list this morning and I'm like, what is this? So
Not quite sure how that occurred. All right.
So I really want to see what that deck was, but he unfortunately didn't carry him through to today.
Now, if we look again at our top 18 in the Player of the Year race, a lot of the next guys, BDM, yes, they're still playing.
Yeah.
Yes, they're not in a hole of 4-4, but not many people are making a deep run. There's a lot of 5 and 3s.
Ari Lax, Seth Manfield, Andre Strosky, Paul Rietzel, Owen Turtenwald, are some of the players who are sitting there with 3 losses.
Right. So what about the 6 and 2?
Sean McLaren, 6-2. Li Shitian, of course, 6-2. Josh Utter-Layton, 6-2. And, I'd start to get a little scared if I'm, seeing Josh Utter-Layton sitting at the table with the Player of the Year title on the line.
Okay. Now, Ian, you've looked a little deeper into the Player of the Year race. And once we sort of get off our leaderboard in the 49s, the 48s, and then the 47s, there are a couple of names that potentially we should be watching out for today. Who's doing really well just off the leaderboard?
So folks who are doing really well, Mike Sigrist here at 7-1, definitely a standout. He's in contention to potentially make top 8, and from that point, anything could happen. Former Pro Tour winner Antonio Del Moral Leon at 6-2, still holding strong. Shahar Shenhar, 2-time world championship at 6-2, and even Flock also at 6-2.
Right, and then if we go a little bit further down, 44 points, a real old school control master, Andrew Cuneo.
That's right.
He's 6-2.
Yeah, I've heard he has his own interesting take on blue-red control this weekend.
Right, now he's Sphinx's tutelage,
He
right?
is tutoring the youngins in the way of control decks today.
Yeah, in more ways
This
than
says
one.
draw a card, draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. Yeah. It's pretty exciting for control players.
You talked yesterday, Rich, about the fact that there were 51 players who could overtake the Player of the Year lead,
Right.
and that some of them were ridiculous long shots.
Absolutely crazy, yes.
And one of those guys is making a push, Ian.
That's right, Kentaro Yamamoto at 8-0.
Right. So he is on 34 points. That is 26 points behind Eric Froelich, who gets 3 automatically, remember, just for playing, and is still going. But nonetheless, you get 30 pro points for winning this tournament. That puts Yamamoto to 64. He has a much better than 50-50 shot of making the top 8. And at that point, well, maybe he's live. He does need, though, BDM, a lot of things up the chain to go right.
Not the least of which is one of the toughest things to do in Magic. He kind of needs to win.
Yes. Yes, I am sure he is not thinking about Player of the Year. That will probably come into view for him round about halfway through the final, if he gets that far. But nonetheless...
He would love 12 points this weekend. Right, that would get him from 34 points on the year to 46 points on the year and lock him up for platinum.
Yeah, 12-4 would do him very nicely.
Yeah.
Even that would be a good salve if he missed out on the top 8. But he, of course, is favourite to make the top 8 on the basis of 8-0 yesterday. We guess 12 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw is round about the mark. That's a historic mark for what makes the top 8. Sometimes you get a 12-4 making it in. Sometimes it's just a straight, you've got to get more than those 12 wins, which is super, super hard. But that is the state of play in the Player of the Year race. Now, what about the Rookie of the Year? Let's show you all the top guys in this. And Rookie of the Year, Ian, it's always a tough one to call because 30 points on the line for the winner means that you can come from almost anywhere to do this thing. But how are the leaders doing in Rookie of the Year? Let's take a little look here. There we are. So Justin Cohen on 35, still alive?
Yep, still alive at 5-3. So he's in pretty good shape. He's got quite a big lead in the race up until this point, and if he holds strong in this tournament, he should be in good shape. But following up close behind him, we have Ben Weitz. Is that how you say?
Yep.
6-2. Eugene Huang at 5-3. Nathaniel Smith and Tyler Hill are actually out of the tournament, so they're not in contention for Rookie of the Year anymore.
Right.
Below them, Jack Fogel at 5-3. And Simon Nielsen at 6-2.
Yeah, now Simon Nielsen's on mono red. He, of course, the Danish team world champion from the World Magic Cup in Nice. He's getting very good at Magic. I've known him for a long time, since he was a very young man. Always wears incredibly outlandish attire, which means you can find him in any room. Put 4,000 people in Vegas, you can find him, which is great. And he's a lovely guy, 6-2. Watch out for him. And then some more 4 and 4s. And that's mostly how things stand in Rookie of the Year. Now, the players are getting seated in the feature match area. Unsurprisingly, Rich Hone against Kentaro Yamamoto is very much box office. But we have 24 slots at the World Championship to give away this weekend. 7 of those are locked in. Why don't we take a look at who we know is going to be joining us at PAX BDM?
Sure. I mean, we have the reigning world champion, who is also the reigning world champion in Shahar Shenhar. He's won it for the last 2 years. We have the captain of the 2014 World Magic Cup winning team, Martin Mueller. We have the Magic Online champion, Magnus Lanto. Of course, our Pro Tour champions from this season, Ari Lax, Antonio Del Moral Leon, and Martin Dang. And just last weekend in Dallas, we crowned Alexander Hayne the Grand Prix Pro Points leader for the year, the player of the year for the Grand Prix circuit. Alexander Hayne, he gets a berth at the World Championship.
All right, so those are the 7 we know. The other 17 come your way today and tomorrow. But to do that, we need to play a bit more Magic. So why don't we head down for round number 9 of Pro Tour Magic Origins.